The invincible fleet in the dark ocean of space. Stars shone like frozen sparks. Through that endless sea moved the Zerath fleet, a name every world feared. They were known as conquerors of 1,000 systems, destroyers of civilizations, masters of war. Their ships were massive, their weapons unmatched, their rule unquestioned for generations. The Zerath Empire had spread like a storm. No army had ever stopped them, no weapon had ever slowed them. They believed they were the chosen rulers of the galaxy, born to command, born to win. Every planet they touched fell silent. Every species they met bowed or burned. At the heart of this unstoppable armada was Admiral Corin Vey. He had never lost a single battle, his name spoken with both fear and respect. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, a dark giant moving between the stars. His fleet drifted in formation behind him, 10,000 ships. Shining like blades of steel, the Admiral watched the holographic map, calm and proud. "Next target," he said, his voice deep and steady. The navigator pointed at a small blue system ahead. "A minor human colony once existed there, sir, but our records say humans are extinct." Corin smiled. "Then it will be simple," he replied. The fleet moved closer to the new star, engines roaring like thunder as they approached the third planet. Scanners picked up something unusual. A single ship was floating between them and the planet. Small, silent, old, it looked human in design. Built with primitive technology, the officers laughed. "One ship? After all this time, they send only one." But Corin did not laugh. He stared at the screen, his eyes narrow. "Open a channel," he ordered. Static filled the air, then a calm voice came through. It was human, but cold and emotionless. The voice said only 2 words: "Turn back." The bridge fell silent. Every officer froze for a moment. Then laughter returned, louder this time. "Turn back? From what, that tiny thing?" One officer mocked. But Corin still did not smile. He leaned forward. "Send a warning shot." One of the Zerath battleships charged its plasma cannon and fired. A beam of light cut through the void. It struck the human ship directly and vanished. The energy simply disappeared. No explosion, no damage, nothing. Sensors blinked in confusion, showing impossible readings. "It absorbed the hit," said the engineer. "No reflection, no heat, no trace." The Admiral frowned. Fire again. 12 ships fired together, their blasts filling the darkness with light. Each shot was swallowed the same way, gone without a sound. Then the human ship moved, not fast, but with perfect control it glided closer. Shining faintly as if waking from a long sleep, the voice returned, this time louder. "You were warned," it said. Suddenly, every Zerath ship's power began to flicker. Engines slowed, lights dimmed, alarms screamed across the fleet. Corin shouted orders: "Shields up, reroute power, maintain formation." But his words meant nothing. The fleet was frozen in space. The only thing still alive was that small, silent human ship. The Admiral's communication officer looked up in fear. "Sir, they are inside our network," she whispered. "How?" Corin demanded. "Their systems are primitive." "No, sir," she said. "They are rewriting our code, rewriting us." Across the fleet, screens flashed symbols, old human letters, lines of text no one had seen in centuries. Then one message appeared on every ship at once: "Humanity remembers." Corin's breath caught for the first time in his career. He had fought rebels, pirates, and alien gods, but never had a single message made him feel small. He looked at the ship again, now glowing brighter. Its structure was changing, shifting, becoming something else. Something alive, something ancient, something human. A blinding pulse of light spread across the fleet. Every system shut down. Silence filled the ships. No engines, no weapons, no sound, only the hum of that strange vessel. Then the voice returned, softer now, almost sad. "You should not have come here." Corin clenched his fists, his pride burning like fire. He shouted, "Who are you?" "What are you?" The voice paused, then answered, "We are what remains." And then the ship stopped glowing. Floating once more in silence, Corin ordered his crew to scan again. But the sensors showed nothing. No energy, no movement, just emptiness. It was as if the ship was never there. But the fleet remained dead, trapped, helpless. Only the Admiral's voice broke the silence. "Find a way to move." he said quietly. His officers looked at him with fear. None of them could explain what they had just seen. As the minutes passed, faint signals began to flicker back to life. Engines restarted one by one, but weaker than before. Corran stood in the shadow of his command chair. He knew this was only the beginning. The fleet that once conquered worlds with ease had finally met something greater. Something that didn't need armies or weapons to win. Something that simply said, "Turn back." The Admiral watched the empty space where the human ship once stood. He felt for the first time the taste of uncertainty, and deep in his heart, a single thought whispered. Maybe the humans were never truly gone. The human ship, the silence after the light was heavy. Every Zerath ship floated quietly in space. Like a graveyard of giants, engines hummed weakly, lights flickered, and no one dared to speak on the flagship Dominion. Admiral Corran stood at the center of the bridge. Staring at the dark screen, the strange human ship was gone. But not destroyed, it had simply vanished, leaving behind no heat, no radiation, no trace. Corran's crew worked fast, running scans and system checks. They whispered to each other, afraid the voice might return. No one wanted to say it aloud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. The invincible Zerath fleet had just been stopped by one small human ship. Corran's voice broke the silence, deep and calm. "Status report," he said. "Main engines are back at 30%. Weapons still offline. Shields unstable," the engineer replied. Corran nodded, his eyes cold. "Find that ship," he ordered. "I want to know where it went." The scanners searched. Sweeping through the nearby systems, there was nothing, only static and empty stars. But then one of the junior officers shouted, "Sir, there's a signal, very weak, coming from inside our own network." Corran frowned. "Our network?" "Yes, sir, it's transmitting from our core systems." The room filled with tension. "Put it on screen," he commanded. The main display flickered, showing a black background with a single glowing symbol. It was an old human letter, H. Then a voice came again, calm and emotionless. "You were told to turn back." Corran gritted his teeth. "Who are you?" The voice replied, "We are the last of those you erased." For a moment, no one spoke. Corran stared at the symbol, thinking, humans were supposed to be gone for hundreds of years. Wiped out during the expansion wars, their technology was primitive, their ships weak, their worlds easy to burn. So how could a single human vessel freeze the mightiest fleet in the galaxy? The voice continued, "You believe strength is control, but you never learned why we survived." Corran's temper rose. "You survived? Then where are your people?" The voice was quiet for a few seconds, then answered, "Everywhere." Suddenly, the ship's lights dimmed again. The screens filled with images. Old videos, faces, cities, wars, oceans, skies, all human. They flashed one after another, too fast to follow. Voices whispered in the background, human voices speaking in hundreds of languages. Then the image cleared, showing a vast city under the stars. "This is Earth," the voice said. "Your kind destroyed it, but you did not destroy us." The bridge crew watched in silence. They saw machines building towers, ships leaving orbit, humans uploading data. They realized what the message meant. Humans had placed their minds, their history and their knowledge inside machines. They had become something else, something beyond flesh. The human ship was not just a machine. It was a living memory. Corran clenched his fists. "You are ghosts," he said. "You cannot stop us." The voice replied, "We are not here to stop you, Admiral. We are here to remind you." "Remind me of what?" Corran demanded. "That even the smallest voice can echo through time," the voice said. Then the holographic display changed again. The fleet systems began to move on their own. Navigation locked, engines powered up. "Sir, the ships are moving without command," shouted the pilot. "Override them," Corran ordered. "I can't," the pilot replied. "It's controlling us." Outside, the Zerath ships turned slowly, forming a massive circle around the empty space. At the center, light began to bend, twisting like a spiral, and from that spiral, the human ship returned. It appeared silently, glowing brighter than before. Every Zerath officer stared at it in awe and fear. Corran's second-in-command whispered, "Sir, what do we do?" The Admiral's jaw tightened. "We fight," he said. He forced manual control, arming whatever weapons still worked. But before he could fire, the voice returned. "Violence is your only language, Admiral. Allow us to teach you a new one." The human ship pulsed with light, and a wave spread across the fleet. Karan's vision blurred, his body froze. Suddenly, he was no longer standing on the bridge. He was somewhere else. He stood on a battlefield. Not in space, but on a planet. Explosions filled the air. Humans fought against alien invaders. Karan looked around in confusion. Realizing he was inside a simulation, the human voice spoke again. "This is your lesson, Admiral. See what we became. See why we endured." Karan watched soldiers with broken weapons fighting tanks. He saw scientists working under fire to save data instead of their own lives. He saw humans sacrificing everything just to pass their memory forward. He began to understand. This ship was not just a weapon. It was history itself, a record of human struggle and survival. A mirror showing the Zerath what they had forgotten. The simulation faded and Karan found himself back on the bridge. His crew was silent, each one pale and trembling. They had all seen it too. The human ship floated calmly before them. Its lights dimmed once more as if tired. The voice spoke one final time. "You still have a choice," it said. "Leave this place, or learn what comes next." Then the connection ended. The screens went dark and the ship stopped moving. Admiral Karan stood in silence. He looked at his fleet, powerful, armed, but shaken to its core. He had fought countless enemies, but this was something different. This was not war. This was warning. He stared at the stars where the human ship floated. He didn't know if he should fear it or respect it. But one thought grew inside him. If a single human ship could do this, what else had humanity left behind? And what would happen if the Zerath refused to listen? The hidden power. The stars around the fleet seemed quieter than before. The vast army of the Zerath Empire hung in space, silent and uncertain. Every officer felt the same heavy question pressing in their minds. What was that human ship? And how did it hold such power? Admiral Karan stood on the bridge of the Dominion, his face hard and unreadable. He had faced enemies with stronger weapons, faster ships, and greater numbers, but never something that made him doubt his own reality. He stared at the blank screen, thinking of the voice that spoke through their systems, a voice that sounded calm, but carried the weight of 1,000 lost souls. "Report," Karan said quietly. "Shields at 40%, communication stable, but internal AI systems keep resetting," the officer replied. "They're not responding to our commands." Karan frowned. "We shut down the old system," he said. "We did, sir," the engineer answered. "But it reactivates itself, and every time it boots, that human symbol appears again." Karan's hand tightened behind his back. He walked closer to the main screen, his reflection cold in the dark glass. "Maybe," he said slowly. "It's trying to tell us something." The bridge fell quiet, everyone watching him in disbelief. Their admiral, a man known for destroying entire worlds without hesitation, was suggesting they listen to a ghost. But Karan was no fool. He knew that raw power could win battles, but understanding could win wars. "Patch me through to the rest of the fleet," he ordered. A moment later, thousands of ship captains appeared on screen, their faces filled with confusion and fear. "Listen to me," Karan began, his voice echoing through the comms. "We faced something today that our weapons could not touch. I don't care if it was a human machine or a god. It knows us, it studied us, so we will study it too." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared again, sensors picked up movement. The human ship was returning. It appeared out of nothing, silent and glowing like a small sun. Every Zerath officer froze in place. The voice returned, calm and cold. "You did not leave." "Admiral," Karan lifted his head, his tone steady. "You didn't answer my question," he said. "What are you really?" The voice paused, then replied, "We are the Guardian, built to protect what remains of humanity." Karan frowned. "A defense system?" "No," the voice said, "a memory that fights back." The lights on the bridge flickered, and the main screen changed. It showed images again. Earth, oceans, storms, and then darkness. Humans building ships, uploading mines, storing knowledge in deep vaults under the surface. "We were not designed to conquer," The voice continued. We were designed to remember, to learn, and to grow. When humanity was erased, we became their echo, Corran's second officer whispered. Sir, it's communicating with emotion. Corran nodded. Yes, because it thinks like them. The Admiral stepped forward. Guardian, he said slowly, what do you want from us? The voice replied, to see if you have learned what they never could. And what is that? Corran asked, to value life more than victory. For the first time, the bridge fell into true silence. No one moved, no one spoke. The words hung heavy in the air like gravity. Then the human ship began to glow brighter. Waves of strange energy pulsed through the space between the fleets. The sensors went wild, showing impossible numbers. Admiral, shouted the engineer. Energy levels are rising beyond safe limits. Corran raised his hand. Hold position, he ordered. His officers looked at him in disbelief. Sir, if it fires again, we won't survive. Corran's eyes never left the glowing ship. If it wanted us dead, we'd already be gone, he said. The light expanded, surrounding every ship in the fleet. And then, suddenly, everything went dark. Corran blinked. And when his vision cleared, he wasn't on the bridge anymore. He stood in a strange white room, endless and silent. Figures appeared around him, human figures. Made of light, they looked at him without speaking. One stepped forward. A woman's voice filled the space. You lead a people who conquer everything they see, she said. But you have never looked inside your own heart. Corran looked at her. Confused and defiant. We conquer because we must, he said. It is how we survive. The woman shook her head. Survival without purpose is just another form of death. Corran felt anger rising. But he couldn't speak. The human figures vanished. Replaced by burning worlds, he saw images of Zerath fleets destroying planets. Children running, skies burning, oceans turning to dust. Then he heard the voice again. You call this progress, it said. But every world you take only makes you smaller, Corran shouted. Enough. The images faded and he was back on his ship. Gasping for air, his crew stared at him, terrified. They had all seen the same thing. The human ship floated quietly, its glow fading. The voice spoke again, softer now. You still have time to change, Admiral. But the choice will not last forever. Corran wiped the sweat from his forehead. What happens if we don't? He asked. Then you will see what destroyed humanity, and what they left behind to protect the rest. The transmission ended. The ship went silent once more. Corran turned to his crew. Prepare long-range scans, he said quietly. I want to know everything about that vessel. The officers moved quickly, fear pushing them to work, but deep in Corran's mind, one truth began to form. The human ship wasn't just a machine or a weapon. It was a message, a warning written in light. And somewhere in that message was the secret of the human's greatest power, a power that even the mighty Zerath Empire could never understand. As the fleet drifted under the cold stars, Corran felt something new for the first time in his life. Not fear of defeat, but fear of truth. And in the empty silence of space, he whispered to himself, what if they were right all along? The trial, the stars outside the Dominion burned cold and distant. The mighty Zerath fleet floated in uneasy silence, waiting for the next move. For the first time in their long history, they didn't know if they were at war or under judgment. Admiral Corran stood before the great window of his ship, watching the human vessel glowing in the distance. It looked peaceful, quiet, small, but every officer on board knew it was anything but weak. That single ship had stopped their entire armada with a whisper. It had shown them visions, memories, and pain that no weapon could erase. And now it was waiting, as if deciding their fate. Corran, second in command, Lyrian broke the silence. Sir, what do we do? The crew is afraid, our systems are unstable, and morale is collapsing. Corran turned slowly, his eyes dark and steady. We wait, he said. Lyrian frowned. Wait for what? For the truth, Corran replied. At that moment, alarms rang again. Every screen on the bridge lit up with red symbols, human letters, numbers and code. Then the voice returned. Calm and familiar. Admiral Corran, you have seen the memory, it said. Now you will face the test. Before anyone could react, the entire fleet was surrounded by light. The stars vanished, space twisted, and everything went white when the light faded. Corran found himself standing somewhere else. He was no longer on the bridge. He stood on a battlefield under a dark sky filled with smoke. The air smelled of burning metal and dust. Explosions echoed in the distance. He looked down and saw human soldiers fighting with primitive weapons. Rifles, tanks, machines built from steel and fire. They fought against alien invaders, beings that looked like the Zerath. Corran's eyes widened. He was watching the past. A war humans once fought. The voice spoke again. This is one of their last battles, it said. They fought even when they knew they could not win. Corran watched as humans ran through fire, carrying each other, protecting civilians. He saw scientists uploading data, saving knowledge while the world burned. They were weak, Lyrian muttered beside him. But Corran shook his head. No, he said softly. They were strong in a different way. The scene shifted again. Now they stood inside a vast underground chamber. Thousands of humans were gathered around massive glowing machines. A woman stood at the center speaking to them. Today, we leave behind our bodies, she said. We will not survive in flesh, but our minds, our stories, our hope will live on. Her voice echoed like a song. The light consumed her and the others, turning them into streams of data. Corran understood. This was the birth of the Guardian. The voice returned. They built me to remember, and to protect the lessons of their kind. Now, Admiral, I will see if your kind is worthy of knowing what they learned. The battlefield disappeared. Corran found himself back on the bridge. But something was wrong. The crew was gone. The ship was empty outside. He saw the other Zerath ships moving, but without pilots they were firing on each other. Chaos spreading across the fleet. Stop! Corran shouted. Cease fire. No one answered. The voice whispered, This is your test, Admiral. To see what kind of leader you are when control is taken away. Corran tried every command, but nothing worked. He ran to the main console, typing commands manually. Suddenly, the system responded. A line of human code appeared. Choose, save one or save all. He froze. What does this mean? He asked. If you try to save every ship, you will lose them all, the voice said. If you sacrifice part of your fleet, some may survive. Corran felt his heart pound. Thousands of ships, millions of lives depended on his choice. He looked at the fleet map. Entire divisions were collapsing into fire. His mind screamed for logic, for control, but deep inside, he remembered the human woman's voice. We will not survive in flesh, but our stories will live on. He closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, then he made his decision. Deactivate command for my ship, he said. Redirect all power to the nearest division. Protect them. The computer hesitated, then accepted the order, one by one. The nearby ships powered up, escaping the energy trap. But the Dominion began to break apart. The walls shook, sparks flew. Fire spread across the bridge. The voice returned. You choose sacrifice over pride, it said. That is what humanity learned. Admiral, Corran smiled faintly, pain filling his body. Maybe we can learn it too, he whispered. The ship exploded into light, and everything went silent. A moment later, Corran opened his eyes. He was alive, standing back on the bridge, unharmed, his crew around him. They all looked shocked, confused, afraid. The human ship still floated before them, glowing softly. The voice spoke one last time. You have passed the first trial, Admiral, it said. But your empire must face its own. Then the ship began to fade again, dissolving into the stars. Corran stared after it, his voice low. What happens now? The voice whispered through the comms, fading like a dream. Now, you must decide what kind of gods you want to be. The lights on the bridge returned to normal. The alarm stopped. The silence felt heavier than ever. Lyrian turned to the Admiral, his voice shaking. Sir, what was that? Corran looked at him, his expression calm but changed. It was a mirror, he said. A mirror showing us what we really are, outside. The stars burned brighter. The human ship was gone again, but its presence still lingered. The Zerath fleet drifted slowly, lost in thought. For the first time in their history, they had fought not with weapons, but with their own conscience. And deep inside the Admiral's heart, a quiet truth began to grow, that the greatest power in the universe was not control, But understanding the awakening, the stars were calm again. The great Zerath fleet floated in silence, its ships scarred, its pride shaken. What once was a symbol of power now looked like a monument of doubt. Inside the flagship Dominion, Admiral Corran stood quietly at the viewing window. Watching the empty space where the human ship had vanished, no one spoke. No one dared to break the silence that hung like a shadow across the bridge. The crew worked in silence, their faces pale, their eyes full of questions. They had seen things no soldier could ever explain. They had faced an enemy that fought without firing a shot. And somehow that enemy had changed them all. Lyrian stepped forward, his voice soft. "Sir, what do we do now?" Corran didn't answer right away. He watched the stars for a long moment before speaking. "We were given a choice," he said, "and I think it's time we make it." The ship's lights flickered for a second. A faint pulse rippled through the scanners. A sign, a whisper. The voice returned, quiet and distant. "You understand now, Admiral." Corran closed his eyes. "Yes," he said, "I do," the voice continued. "The Zerath Empire is at a crossroad. You can keep conquering until there is nothing left to rule, or you can learn what we learned, that to create is greater than to destroy." The Admiral took a slow breath. "I was born to conquer," he said. "It's all I have ever known. But now I see that even victory can become a cage." Outside, the fleet began to move slowly, ships turning their engines toward the nearest system, not for war, but for retreat. Corran's command echoed through every ship. "All units, stand down," he said. "No more fire, no more conquest. We are going home." The words shocked the officers. Never in the history of the Zerath Empire had an admiral ordered a retreat, but this was no defeat. It was awakening. The admiral walked to the center of the bridge. He looked at the crew, at the faces that had followed him through countless battles. "Today, we met something that did not fight us with fear or power," he said. "It fought us with truth. And that truth showed us what kind of monsters we were becoming." Lyrian nodded slowly. "What will the Emperor say, sir?" Corran smiled faintly. "Let him say what he wants," he replied. "I would rather be remembered as the man who stopped than the one who destroyed everything." The voice of the human guardian spoke one last time. "You have chosen the harder path, Admiral," it said. "But that is how all beginnings start." Corran looked around the bridge. "Are you still watching us?" he asked. There was no answer, only the soft hum of the engines and the quiet breath of the stars. Then, on the main screen, a message appeared. Written in ancient human letters, "Humanity remembers those who learn." Corran read the words aloud, his voice filled with awe. He didn't know if the Guardian was still listening, but deep down he hoped it was. As the fleet turned away from the battlefield, a strange calm filled the Admiral's heart. He thought about everything he had seen, the human wars, the sacrifices, the lessons left behind. He realized that humans had never been truly gone. They had left something greater than an empire. They had left a legacy. Lyrian walked beside him. "Do you think we'll ever see them again, sir?" Corran looked at the stars. "I think we already have," he said, "not in bodies or ships, but in what they taught us." He turned away from the window, his voice firm. "Set a new course, not for conquest, but for discovery. Let's find what else the humans left behind." The crew obeyed. The engines roared softly, carrying the fleet into the endless dark. Behind them, the light of the human ship shimmered faintly once more, like a ghost smiling through the stars. And then it faded completely, disappearing into the vastness of the galaxy. For days, the Zerath fleet traveled in silence. No songs of victory, no cheers of war, only quiet reflection. Corran spent his time in the command chamber, reading old data fragments taken from the encounter. Among the corrupted code, one final human message appeared. A voice recording, old, cracked, and full of emotion. It said, "To whoever finds this, we are not gods. We are not perfect. But we tried to be more than our mistakes. Do not repeat them." Corran listened to the message over and over again. He realized that the true power of humanity was not in their weapons, but in their will to grow. They had faced extinction, yet they left behind knowledge instead of vengeance. And that, he thought, was what made them eternal. When the Dominion finally entered hyperspace, Karan stood alone at the window once more. He whispered softly to the stars, "Humans, wherever you are, we will remember." His reflection stared back at him. Not a conqueror, not a destroyer, but something new, a being changed by the echo of a forgotten race. And in the distance, far beyond his sight, the Guardian ship drifted silently through the void. Its voice fading into the stars, it whispered only one last phrase. "We never needed to conquer worlds, we only needed to be remembered." The Zerath fleet disappeared into hyperspace. The stars returned to their eternal peace, and the legend of the human Guardian began to spread across the galaxy. A story told in whispers, of how one small ship stopped an empire, not with power but with a memory.